In this video, we will learn more about Formik props and especially the prop handle change. So in our earlier videos, we have seen how to use Formik, and if you have not seen those videos so far, I would strongly suggest that you first go and have a look. The links have been shared in the description. So Formik has a lot of props, and some of the common props or the commonly used props are values. Values is a JSON which stores the form's values. Handle change is the input change event handler. So when you are say typing something in a text field or selecting a drop down or a radio or a checkbox, a change event is generated. So the default handler for it is the handle change. handleBlur is the onBlur event handler, and there are a lot many more props that Formik shares. So if we go to this website, we can read the documentation of the other props that are available in Formik. So there are a lot of props available. So as we can see here, these are the props. So handleBlur, it takes an event and is a function. So it's the onBlur event handler as we discussed. Handle change is the general input change event handler. There is a handle reset, there is a handle submit, and a lot many more props, including let's find out values that we discussed. So values, your form's values. So what is the purpose and how do we use it? So let's look at the usage of these props. So typically in the Formik, within the Formik, we define our fields and everything. So here while defining it, we can pass the props and then use them in the field. So here in this example, we have used the value is props.values.myname. So as we discussed, values is the JSON having those fields, storing the form values with the name as the name specified. onChange is the props.handleChange. onBlur is the props.handleBlur. And we are passing props here and we can use it in this form. Another way and a very common way to use it is destructure the props here and we handle it in a simple fashion. So let's just run this code and see how does this work. So here we have a main component which just calls this Formik form, and what we will do in this Formik form is like we discussed, we will just create exactly the same code that we have done here. So we will just render a field and let's see how that works. So here we can say now props goes to, and what do we say within the props? So it will say create a field name is equal to the name we gave it there, say my name. The next field that we gave it was value is equal to props dot values. So that's the props within it dot my name, the name that we have given. Then we said on change is equal to props dot handle change. And then when we said on blur, which is the focus lost event, is equal to props dot handle blur. So this is our form, so which has a single field. So if we run it now, we get an error here, cannot read property my name of undefined. So why are we getting that error? Because we did not define the initial values. So the initial values helps us get the initial values. So let's define it. Say my name is say test. So that's the only field we are using. Now if we run it, you can see we get the test here. And we can make whatever changes we want to do. So let's make this code a little bit more interesting. And on our on change, let's on the console print the name of the field and its value. So let's define it here. So we get the event in our on change. And what do we do in our event? We will just say console.log e.current target.name and e.current target.value. So we have shown the name of the field and its value, and let's just say before that on change. So this is getting printed on change. We can do that. And now when we are calling props.handleChange, we will need to, because we are making the function call, we will need to pass e to it. So this should work. Similarly in our onBlur, let's make the same change. We will make the e goes to, let's print this value, and we will call the props.handleBlur with the event. So this will be on. Let's test it again. So we have the initial value test, the console is empty. Now if I click out of it, so the focus was lost, we got a onBlur. The field name is my name and value is test. So as we type it, we get the onChange. So how is this working? So the standard handleChange is working, which is why we are calling it at the end. If I stop calling it, suppose I have commented it out. Now what will this lead to? So if I type on it, I get the event, but you can see the input is not getting shown here because this field is not getting updated. Why is it not getting updated? Because I commented the props.handleChange. So this is the code which is handling the values and updating the values. If we want to do any other processing, if we want to build any logic, we can put it here, and that at the end of it, we can just call the default handleChange. So that's a standard way to use it. Same thing we can do with the blur, and for the other props, as you probably, when you want to read it or when you need it, you can go through those list of props and figure out how to use them. We had also discussed this format wherein we destructure it, so we can just modify the code. So instead of calling props here, we could just have said values. This should be in comma handle change comma handle blur. We destructure them, and now instead of saying props.values, we just use that. And just so that we are getting them, let's get it as test 1, 2, 3. So we are getting these values, and now if I type on it, I get the same thing. On blur, we get the same thing. So this is using object destructuring. Next, what do we want to do? We'll do a couple of exercises using this so that it becomes much clearer, and it also gives us a sense of how to use them. So create a form using Formik which has two text fields with the names as text1 and text2. If any input is made to text1, so in the first text field, if we make an input, the same also appears in text2. So the value of text2 also gets the same value as text1 and vice versa. So let's go ahead and do it. So let's just modify the code that we had written here. So let's say we have text1 initialized, and let's say we initialize it to say text1, and we have text2 initialized to say text2. So these are our two text fields. Now what will be a field? The name is text1. We really don't need the value, it automatically handles the value. We don't want to handle the onBlur, we just want to handle the onChange. So in the onChange, whenever we get it, what should we do? If a change has occurred in text field 1, then what will we do? We will say values dot text2. So the value of text2 has changed. So what should it be? It should be values dot text1. So we will assign this value here, and similarly we will do it in the other one. So let's make the other field The name of this field is text2, and here we need something as the, so let's maybe enclose it in a form, which is the standard Formik form. So let's enclose it there. So here in this case, what will it be? It will be value of text1, values.text1 will be assigned the value of text2. So those are the two changes and this should work fine. Let's go ahead and test it. So we have text1, we have text2. Let's say we make the value of this as text1. So the value of text1 has become text1. And it is one step behind. So why is this one step behind? The reason it's one step behind is because we are using values.text1. Instead of that, what should we have done? We should have used, say, e.currentTarget.value. So this is the current value of text1. In the handle change, values.text1 would have gotten updated. So this should work fine. Similarly, here instead of saying values.text2, we should have said e.currentTarget.value. Let's test it again. So we have text1, we have text2. Say if I type a here, you can see both of them have become text1, text1a, text1a. Now if in text1a I type a value n, both of them have become the same. So we could have built any logic. We could have just say is plus say hash. So maybe we could have done something like that, and I'm just doing it to demonstrate it. So the value of this has become, and we could have built any logic we want to do that. So here we used the onChange to put in our logic, and at the end of it we have used the default handleChange to handle everything. So what power does this give us? Because we don't want to handle the other things with onChange, we just want to put in our logic that we wanted to do, which is what it allows us to do. Let's look at the next exercise. Create a form using Formik in which three numbers num1, num2 and total are entered. They all have been initialized to 0. The form has a rule that num1 plus num2 is equal to total. So in the three fields, the value in num1, the value in num2, the sum should be equal to the value in total. Ensure that as the value in any of the three text fields changes, the rule is satisfied. So if we make a change in num1, the total will remain the same, the value of num2 will change. Similarly, if we change the value of num2, the value of num1 should change. If the value of total changes, num1 and num2 get the value total by 2. So if the value of total changes, then num1 and num2 both get updated to total by 2. So let's go ahead and solve this exercise, and we can use the same form. Let's modify it here. So here we get num1, it's a 0, say num2, and total is say 0. So these are our values. So the first field we have is num1, type is number, so let's ensure that it's a number. And then when the onChange happens, when the value of num1 changes, what should we do? Values.num2. So the value of num2 needs to change, that's what we said, which should be equal to what? Values.total minus e.currentTarget.value, which is the current value of num1. And because this will be a string, so we will just put a plus to convert it into a number. So this will become the values of num2. Similarly, this field will be known as num2, type is equal to text is equal to number, sorry. And here what should we do? Values.num1 is equal to values.total minus, and we can put a plus here. Similarly, we need another field, so let's copy this and that field is total. Now if this field changes, then what will be num1? It will be the current value of total divided by 2, and similarly num2 will also get this value. So this should be our logic, and here we don't need the handleBlur, so let's not destructure it. So this should work fine for us. Let's go ahead and test it. So we have num1, num2, num3. Suppose I make the value of this as say 4. So the value of num2 has become -4, which is exactly what we wanted. If I change the value of this to 8, this has become -8. If I put it as a -7, it becomes 7. Let's change the value of total. Let me put it as say 9. So both of them have become 4.5, which is what we wanted. So as the value in one is changing, we are able to ensure that this rule is working. We could have also done this code in a slightly different way, and let's see how do we do that. Let's define a function here, say handle number changes, and what does it get? It gets 3 parameters, the values. So first it gets say the event, the values, the current set of values, and the say what to do after it, which is the handle change. And what do we do here? Here let's say the structure name and value is equal to event dot current target. So that's what we do. Now we can just write say a switch on name. And why are we writing a switch on name? Because it could be a change in num1, it could be a change in num2, it could be a change in total. So we could just say case num1. So if the value of num1 changes, then what do we need to do? Values dot num2 is equal to values dot total minus plus value. So the value here is of num1, so this should be it, and we put a break. Similarly, we can write it for the case num2. So if the name of this is num2, then values dot num1, the value of num1 will now change, is values dot total minus plus value, because value will be the new value of num2, and we put a break. And if it is the case total, then what do we need to do? Values dot num1 is equal to plus value by 2, because value will now be the new value of total, and values dot num2 is equal to plus value by 2, and a break. So we could have defined this function, and here instead of this we could have just said, what's the name of this function? Handle number changes, and what are the parameters it takes? It takes the event E, it takes the values, and it takes the handle change. So we could have, in some sense, this should be our function here. The same function we could have written in this case also. We could have defined the onChange to be the same thing, and in this case also we could have defined the onChange to be this. So there are multiple ways we can handle it. So let's go ahead and test this case. So we get these values. If I make the total as say 88, there is a problem here. I am not being able to enter it. Why? Because here after this we should have called the handle change with the event. We forgot to do that, so those changes were not working. Let's make that change again. Now if I enter the value 88, the values have changed, and you can see the corresponding changes are working. So this is exactly the same code but written in a slightly different way, where all the logic has been put in here and we are just calling the framework here. We're calling that function here. So this makes it slightly neater at times, but you can choose whichever approach works for you better.